let's get into it. Before we say anything, SykoStu has a GoFundMe out. Turns out that it is legitimate, it is verified. I believe his brother had originally said, if there's a GoFundMe, it's not ours. And then GoFundMe and Stu's brother have both said, no, this is the real one. Well over $100,000 last I checked. A couple of the usual suspects, Miro, Rusev donated, Chris Jericho donated. That you can, whatever you can say about Chris Jericho, you can't say that he's one heck of a generous son of a gun. Mr. Beast donated $10,000 as well. So, I mean, it's a great outpouring of support for somebody who's very, very clearly being wronged. There's one thing that we didn't really talk about. We talked about this on the pre-show, and I think it's important to mention this first before we get into all this extra news that's come since Monday. And I wanted to say, even we realised that Stu apologised, several times to Raja and stuff like that. And you said it was more kind of symptomatic of the culture of pro wrestling being its own bubble. But also, we have to assign a modicum of blame to Stu for bonking a stranger on the head with a can of beer kind of thing. Now, once again, this is not a capital offence. You know what I mean? And things would have weirdly gone a lot different if he'd done that. The can was empty. Afterwards, Raja said he wasn't hurt by it at all. He admitted that on the stream. So the only thing that was hurt was feelings. And Raja's precious little feelings were hurt about this. But as you say, you said it was more symptomatic of the pro wrestling bubble and the pro wrestling culture, that you sort of assume anybody in the backstage is a worker kind of thing, which actually they should be.
Yeah, what I said was that Stu and probably maybe a lot of other people, because the guy AJ, I know we're going to bring his name up a bunch once again, he was the one that invited Raja, and that's where the suspicion before with myself, looking at AJ and Stu and wondering before we found the information out, like, is there something between these guys, or does AJ guy have something against the Stu guy? And apparently there is some bad blood there. But it's kind of like what I said. The wrestling business has kind of been spoiled by these celebrities and other people that have done very well. I repeat that. That's definitely something to let the guard down. But also, it used to be, even with the checks and the balances and the extreme protection of the business, the entrance to the arena, the locker room, and especially the ring, when somebody has access to a locker room, in this case, the outside, which is another point that I'm going to make should be avoided. You're out there, Raja's in the crowd, he's with another worker. So the incorrect assumption by Stu is that Raja is clued in, is, as you said in your video on your channel, he's in on the joke. He's in on the work. These are all incorrect assumptions. I don't know about the face-off, and I don't know why Stu felt he needed to, even in a work sense, hit him with an empty beer can to the head. Now, this kid also suffered a concussion days earlier. So, and he said he wasn't hurt by it. If he was like, oh my God, I'm like knock loopy, I'm sure the Stu guy would have apologized as he did when he found out that Raja isn't clued in, isn't in on the joke, isn't in on the work. He apologized profusely to him. This is where it takes the left turn. If you had said to me, like you said, James, in your video, if he turned around, boom, and Raja turned around and popped him or hit him or grabbed him and said, don't you ever do that again, I'm sure the Stu guy would be like, what's going on here? They would have broke it up. He still would have apologized. And I don't even know if it would have been squashed, because once Raja seemed to have it in his head, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to F up a pro wrestler for real. The 2 hours leading up to it, even when the Black Pearl guy was standing there going, laughing, oh, we're always working. And the Stu guy sitting down, Raja standing there, Stu and Black Pearl, it seemed like it's all been calmed down. Raja standing there still rocking back and forth. And dude, the look on his face, if I was there, I'd be like, something's not right with this guy. Wheels are turning. He's thinking of something. This is not squashed. And as somebody who runs the school or the promotion, I'd be like, we can't let this dude anywhere near the ring. Instead, the opposite happened. So, like you said, in an alternative timeline, if Stu hit him and Raja grabbed him or wrestled with him or even popped him back, I think it should have been all squashed, but I think he was already, it felt like he already had an idea in his mind, or the AJ guy was already telling him, do this to this Stu guy. I don't know, but it just didn't seem right no matter what would have occurred at that particular point. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, funnily enough, I listened to Bradshaw's take. He said the exact same thing as me. He said, well, if he just punched him back right there and there, got into a scuffle and then sort of just,
got it out of their system.
Basically stood
got
on.
It out of his system.
Yes, got it out of his system, stood on business, shook hands afterwards, laughed about and then moved on. It could have been a completely different thing. But we don't do alternative timelines. This isn't the multiverse. So that's not what happened. We're going to go straight to AJ Mann, actually. Just before, I wanted to mention also on this live stream, Rampage, Raja's father, phoned him up beforehand, laughing that he was getting beaten up by guys in tights. So just one thing after another, gaslighting someone who is emotionally stunted and basically a psychopath at this point. Right, let's get to AJ Manor, who is the cowboy-looking dude.
Not to be confused with Michael Manor.
No! For goodness sake, no relation. I mean, there's less ends in this one anyway. Anyway, AJ Manor posted, I think on Facebook, a post that he's since deleted because it is mind-meltingly a stupid position to take, especially when you're on stream saying what he was caught saying. Basically, tag him, beat him up, and I'll back you up if he tries anything. Stu tries anything. I want to take a moment to address the recent incidents at Nox Pro. First and foremost, my thoughts are with SykoStu and his family. The guy that you were going to... Anyway. No one ever wants to see a fellow performer get seriously hurt. There's been a lot of speculation online about my role that night. The truth is, I was in character, and speaking in the language of wrestling. Everything I said was part of the show, and I never intended or encouraged real harm, Stevie.
Well, I'm going to stop it right there and say someone is instructing him to say this. Or like Rampage Jackson with his statement, he went to ChatGPT because he did not. That is not Rampage Jackson.
He did not formulate these words or anyone. Anyway, this was a situation that unfortunately got out of hand due to miscommunication behind the scenes. You were the one communicating, and a bunch of preteens on Kick. Anyway, wrestling is built on trust, respect, and protecting each other in the ring. That's why I stand for, and anyone who has worked with me knows that. That's why I stand for, comma. There's a word missing there. I respect this business, I respect the fans, and I respect the performers who step between those ropes. I hope we can focus on Stu's recovery and making sure... focus on Stu's recovery and not your part you played in it, geeing up a nut job to, kill him. This is the most... Apart from the fact that it's the most unbelievably self-serving post, it's a complete lie as well, because you on stream... I never intended or encouraged real harm. Yes, you did. The quote says, on that stream, you were caught encouraging real harm. And then if Stu fought back, you said you would back Raja up.
Yeah, that's about right. That is about right. What seems like here, and this is the one thing that people have been debating about the criminal part of this, or maybe even the civil part, that pro wrestling is supposed to be fake. It's supposed to be a work. It's supposed to be a show. This quote here, this statement that AJ's saying is basically, we were just all kind of part of the work and it just got out of hand. And it was just something unfortunate and miscommunicated. There's a lot of wording here that says there's no guilt involved or no intention, which the stream obviously shows multiple people having intentions and basically premeditated sense. But do you see what I'm saying with the wording and the way it's chose and that gray area of work or shoot? There's people still, I talked about it on Patreon. Somebody actually put a video up saying, well, obviously this is a work because look at the way the fist just brushes the beard and look at the way Stu's selling it. I was like, yeah, he's selling it because he's choking on his friggin' teeth. He's bleeding. He's knocked out and he's halfway to a coma. And he's literally, the word of the guy talking to Raja on the phone afterwards, he's flatlined. So nobody knew if this dude was even alive or dead. But he might have been alive enough for people to pin him and then make a cover and a count by the same referee that people are giving grace to to say, well, he's not an MMA referee. Well, guess what? Maybe we should have some MMA referees.
On the interview, you posted this to me. I'd already seen it, by the way. Several former and current Knox pro wrestlers on the Scaling Up podcast. It was on YouTube, including Douglas Mallow. That name's going to be coming up a couple of times. He was the guy who, along eventually with some others. Now, I did mention this. I'll mention that in a second. He gave an interview. He was the guy who Roger actually tried to double leg, and Douglas actually headbutted him, put him in the corner, not calmed him down, basically with other wrestlers who followed him. He was the leader. There was another wrestler outside with some face paint who did come into the ring first, and we were like, well, he's not doing the greatest job of stopping the fight, but he was trying. Turns out, I think I'm right in saying this, he was 17 years old. I was like, he's a boy seeing something he's hopefully will never see again and probably never saw beforehand and doesn't know how to react, kind of thing. So, I mean...
Yeah, but he's basically being more of a man than any of the other guys outside of Doug Mallow, right?
Yeah, basically, especially that referee. I don't think the referee's getting criticised enough. We'll get to the referee in a minute. Anyway, Douglas Mallow said this and sort of registering his disgust at the wrestling school for trying to cover up or encourage no cooperation with police. This is what he says. The most disgusting thing that people at this school are being encouraged to not cooperate with the police. From what I hear, the police were there investigating the scene shortly after Stu was removed. And there have been multiple requests that have gone downstream from upper management to not talk with the police directly if they are contacted and to only let a certain group of individuals interact with the police. That is extremely dishonest. Is it not illegal? I don't know.
It's obstruction of justice, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. It might be obstruction of justice if you lie to the police, or maybe that's how it works here. If you lie to the police and say you know nothing, but it's not.
What about witness tampering? Witness tampering.
Yeah, witness tampering
or something.
Close, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely morally or even legally, it's not right, or both. Definitely not morally right. And this is a guy that worked in this promotion for 11 years. And that's what Doug had said. You think these people are your friends? They're not your friends. Mm-hmm. And that's proven in the worst way possible.
To finish off the quote, you guys let your friend almost die, and now you're trying to have people lie for you. And this actually, allegedly, is the initial message that was sent out by Knox Pro's Kevin Thomas, KT King, on the SykoStu Roger Jackson incident. This is as follows. Please refrain from engaging in comment sections on social media posts about this tragedy. It will be weaponized in potential criminal and civil cases. Fly low. Keep in mind civil cases. If law enforcement or an attorney for the suspect contacts you in any capacity, let someone here know right away for guidance on how to address them. Now, this tells me, at the sake of trying to squash a criminal investigation, they're actually more interested in the civil case that I suspect will be levelled against the school for their part in green-lighting, letting him in backstage where the wrestlers were, even though he shouldn't have been there, really, and two, agreeing to let this maniac do a spot with Stu. And here's the other thing, is that as far as I know, and I said this on Monday's one, they never interacted between the initial can bonk thing and then when Raja got into the ring, because I believe Raja was told by someone at ringside what he was going to be doing. Like, there was no running through, as you said, there was no running through of this spot, there was no checks and balances. They just went, right, you're doing a slam. The assumption that a non-wrestler who is clearly not right in the head will do the right thing is such an impossible lapse of judgment.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There's one word, and I don't want to split the words up too much or pick them apart. If law enforcement or an attorney for the suspect contacts you, do you think it's just a bad choice of words, or they meant if any of Stu's legal representation, if he gets any? Because wouldn't they be on the side to try to quell the defense? You know what I mean? They're part of the defense, if you think about it at this point, in some regard. Or are they going to basically cooperate? It looks like they don't want to cooperate. Here's my question, too. I don't remember if Doug or anybody or this KT King said who sent the text. That's pretty important. Who's the person in upper management that's trying to tamper with witnesses or maybe obstruct justice?
Okay, well, this doesn't necessarily answer your question, but there are two owners of this school. Rikishi, WWE Hall of Famer, we'll get to that in a minute, not that he's going to be stripped to the Hall of Fame, of course, and Black Pearl, his cousin Reno Anawai. So they are the two owners. I suspect that this comes from the top. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, I can't say one way or the other. Do you think they will take away his Hall of Fame induction?
No, didn't take.
I thought you said they are. I don't.
No, that was ID.
Yeah, they took away the ID, and we're going to talk about ID as well. The checks and balances thing. Before we move on, this is the whole thing, and like you said, there is a little bit of guilt with the system, with the culture of the locker room and wrestling. They're just out there like it's a cookout, like it's a barbecue, hanging out, very accessible. I do understand in some ways what independent wrestling, making yourself available to the fans, interacting, having meet and greets. This is a completely different thing. This is something where you need a barrier, physical or metaphorically, where nobody can get the access. In other words, like I said, if somebody makes it into the building, it's like, okay, is that a fan? Is that a worker? If somebody makes it back into the locker room and sitting there and has bags or has some way and is talking, and then there's a wrestler on the roster that's vouching for them, your incorrect assumption sometimes at this point is going to be clued in, knows it's a work. Oh, they're involved tonight. So, okay, they're somewhat trained. Do you see what I mean? When you break through all those checks and balances and barriers and get to the locker room and people are communicating and welcoming you to some degree, you're thinking, oh, okay, they're part of the deal. That's not the case. Outside eliminates some of those barriers and checks and balances and allows for the water to be muddied. And now you don't know. And now you have to err on the side of caution from this point on and just say, if I don't know these people, everybody's a mark, everybody's not clued in, and we need to protect ourselves, and we need to bring back kayfabe and go somewhere else and get away from them.
Let's go to the ID thing straight away. Right, this is a WWE ID was affiliated school. I imagine, now this is just pure speculation on my part, I don't know how many checks were done on this school, but, you know, it's run by a former WWE star and WWE Hall of Fame, and, you know, basically figured in, especially with all his sons in the company at the moment as well. So, and anyone, I think like the initial 5 or 6 schools, nearly all of them have, you know, Seth Rollins has one that's affiliated, Cody Rhodes has one. I think, is it Reality Wrestling Devons?
No, that's Booker T's.
I'm sorry, I completely messed up on the other video. It's Booker T's, my apologies. You know, they've all got, you know, strong links to WWE, apart from like one that I don't think does, but all the rest do. Anyway, I'm wondering if someone from WWE would have gone down there and then like seen this scene of basically having a NASCAR cookout in the afternoon and looked around and think, maybe you should all be a bit more professional because you've got the WWE logo on your website and you're affiliated with us kind of thing. You brought this up in the pre-show.
Well, I did bring it up because you even look at most of the roster, like Doug Mallow and the other guy that were on the podcast, they look like wrestlers. But there's a whole lot of people that I'm looking at saying, this is a WWE ID thing, and obviously it's politically aligned with Rikishi being favored politically by the office. But I would look at these people, and outside of the Doug Mallow guy and the KT King, I believe is the other guy next to him in the podcast. If I'm wrong, I apologize. They look like they have the potential to maybe go to NXT or somewhere else. But the others, it's like, where is the feeder system to put people in NXT, WWE, or bring them along? I don't see it. So yeah, now obviously everybody's sitting out there having a cookout. Maybe there was a beer can involved that was empty. Were they drinking during the afternoon? That's not reflected for. I have a feeling WWE was not putting out a standard operating procedure, a standard template on now you need to run. You're essentially developmental territory. So you need to now look like a WWE territory, like FCW used to look like OVW, even like Deep South to some extent. But it seems like the brands are all kind of doing their own thing independently and just have that badge or sticker of WWE ID. Here's my question back to you and everybody in the comments. Do you think WWE is going to do away with the ID program? And do you think they're just going to be very, very limited? Because Booker runs a great school and a great promotion. Devon's not ID, but I'm impressed with what Devon's doing down there with his school. He doesn't have a TV deal or anything. Cody's Nightmare Factory right up there. Like AEW never took advantage of that the way they should have. That's run really well in a sports performance facility. So, and the other ones I don't know about, but Knox Pro just reminded me of an independent that I came up with, you know, in the 90s. Just very gritty and not very professional looking.
I've got breaking news, as it were, but nothing too interesting. Right, so the Knox Pro website, I said on Monday, I think on our show, that they'd taken off the WWE ID logo. Someone, I think, commented and said, no.
No, you said in your video, but on Monday, they were still officially WWE ID, but on your channel, Tuesday, you said that it was taken down.
Thank you. It wasn't taken down. I checked this morning, it was still there. But I can actually change. Here we go. They've just whited out the WWE ID logo from their website, and also, whatever this means, WWE have unfollowed Rikishi on Twitter. So there you go. They're really distant. You know, I know these seem like small things, but they are distancing Rikishi.
I don't know. And this is something that is really unfortunate, too, because I don't know how involved Rikishi is. He does a lot of shows. I think he was even going to do Memphis Pro Wrestling coming up. I saw an ad for that on YouTube. So he's still working indies and making appearances as far as I can guess or speculate. So it seems like Rikishi attached his name to it, and obviously a family member is there to run it in person. But who's going to suffer the major losses, the major loss of any kind of affiliation? It's going to be Rikishi personally. They unfollowed him on social media. I don't know about getting booked on any legend shows for WWE or anything like that, or what's going to happen, but I'm looking at your eye. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just fine.
I don't cry. The Stinky Face podcast is not going anywhere.
Man, don't scare me like that, man. Seriously. Right, let's get to. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's almost funny. It'd be funny if it wasn't so. Just.
Is that why you were rubbing your eyes? You read the quotes again?
I've just got an itchy eye. Leave me eyeball alone. Goodness me, I've never had so much scrutiny on how I scratch my eyelid. Right. Here's the thing that. I think it was Tom Lawler, Filthy Tom Lawler, former MMA star in UFC, and then, you know, he does pro wrestling now, or did anyway. I think he's just had hip surgery. Now, he posted, somebody uploaded an alternate angle of this, right? After Raja Jackson's pinned into the corner, and as they are basically scuttling him out of there, as he's still trying to fight all these guys, Stu Smith, SykoStu, is still unconscious. At one point, someone described him as flatlined. I mean, he wasn't medically flatlined, but, you know, I think he was put into an induced coma. That was one of the rumours out there. We can't say for sure. Anyway, he's there choking on his teeth and his blood, as has been described. For some reason, another of the wrestlers, who obviously wasn't getting involved in the fight, slid into the ring and pinned SykoStu. And the cowardly referee, who was stood there watching nearly 24 unprotected headshots and did nothing about it, counts the pinfall. Is this symptomatic of pro wrestling, or are these just two of the stupidest people to walk the planet?
It's both. It's symptomatic, and I was going to make a point about the Doug Mallow guy, and then the other guy, if his name's KT King, then I got it right. If not, I apologize once again. The two guys from the podcast that literally were speaking truth from witnessing it and being a part of it and all that stuff. And also, the weird part about that, and I'm going to talk about it right here, nobody's getting on the referee. As a matter of fact, people are defending the referee in the wrestling bubble. Nobody's getting on Raja to a point. We're going to go through all the quotes and saying Stu burdened some of the blame on him. And we've already talked about how the situation went differently. Yes, we understand that, but that's not what happened.
Can I just say this as well? I'm very sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify that Stu statement. Okay, if he'd open hand slapped him as hard as he could, he would have deserved a couple of punches and maybe a knockout for that. That is still not a capital offence. You still, you know, when someone's knocked out, the fight's over. Can we just agree on that? Like, nothing that Stu did.
We agree. The heat of the heat of the moment thing of bip, back and forth, right?
Yeah.
This is bip, apologize, clue him in, smarten him up, apologize again.
The apology. Yeah,
accepted the apology, shook his hand, but his face said a different story. Even when he shook his hand, he was looking away like I got something on my mind. It's all premeditated and it's all on a live stream. So whatever live stream kicks or whatever, you can delete it all you want. It's somewhere out there. Someone downloaded it. It's people have it. So you're not getting out of it by deleting the stream. Here's the crazy part about the wrestling business, the negatively crazy, hilarious part about this business. Do you know who has the most amount of heat in some people's eyes?
Cool.
Doug Mallow for opening his mouth and stooging it off and telling the truth about it. There's some circles of wrestling people that are saying that dude's never getting booked again. Am I wrong?
Do you know what? He should be booked in NXT. WWE should sign him up because there's, I guess, far few people in life with enough moral fortitude and character to do what's right, and he did. So he should be rewarded.
Yeah, but in pro wrestling, if you think for yourself, if you have a thought or have any kind of moral compass to speak up, you're the one. We live in a day and age where you actually shoot the messenger. The person who reports the crime is going to be scrutinized more than the person actually committed it.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from what I know, and I said it on Patreon, and I'll echo it again in a bit after we go through all these takes, because this is not the wrestling business I know. This is not it. But the parts that I do know that are negative are starting to creep up a little bit. The confirmation bias, the gaslighting, and looking at the guy, Doug Mallow, and the other guy going, you'll never work again.
Let's talk about this clown who pinned Stu. He didn't put him in the recovery position. You know, he's obviously choking and, you know, dying basically. But then, you know, someone's got to get their shit in. That's wrestling. That's wrestling at its most base level, I guess, like the worst aspects of it. Anything else to add about the ref and the guy who pinned him?
Yeah, this whole the show must go on BS that we're hearing and some people's take on this, like he only pinned him because it would calm the fans down. No, the guy laying there choking on his teeth in almost like a medically induced coma, or you don't even know if the guy's alive. They don't even know if this dude was breathing. And he got covered, and the referee, who completely showed inaction up to this point, finally gets to action and counts a 3 count. What are we doing here?
Right. I think I've seen this being compared to the mass transit incident. I've seen New Jack stabbing that dude multiple times when he punched him hard twice in that match, and New Jack admitted that he was trying to kill him. I mean, I've heard it compared to those things. I want to compare it to a story that not that many people in wrestling know, and it is Mighty Zulu Ron Pope. Now, if that name isn't on the tip of your tongue, well, join the line, man. That name's on the tip of nobody's tongue. Versus Frankie Lane, Cowboy Frankie Lane. Now, people might, on the Storytime with Dutch Mantel podcast, might have heard that name because Dutch used to tag with him in Puerto Rico in '79, had the Puerto Rico's greatest ever run of main event sellouts in '79. Anyway, a disagreement between the two. I don't know what it was about. Anyway, later that day, this is all premeditated. Frankie Lane had his head looking out through the curtain, watching the matches, and Mighty Zulu Ron Pope smashed his head in with a steel pipe from behind. And that strikes me as like the closest correlation that's happened in wrestling to this. It's like, okay, you just tried to kill the guy. You didn't even do it face to face. Yeah, and you let it fester. And this was in, I don't know, the late 70s, mid 70s?
Well, in some ways, this is worse because that guy's in a sacred part of the arena. He's backstage. He's watching matches through the curtain. And somebody he's supposed to trust with his body, not only in the ring, but around that environment, literally hits him in the back of the head with a pipe. And you said right here, Lane suffered lifelong brain damage, changed his personality, obviously concussions and CT. We didn't know anything about that in '79. Continued to wrestle, as you said, and he had a great run with Dutch in Puerto Rico. That is insane. Now, what happened to the what the Ron Pope guy is the one that did it, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He continued wrestling, but he sucked.
Ron Pope. So what was he blacklisted after that?
Oh, he wrestled up to. I checked his matches. He wrestled up to 86. Never did anything in the business. He was a horrible wrestler. He was shaped very weirdly. Had a great body, but he was like all limbs. He's almost like a daddy long legs of a wrestler. He was weird. Anyway, he was no good, and he never made it anywhere in the business. And I don't know I don't care what the argument was about. You don't try and kill someone with a steel pipe, for goodness sake. One more thing to mention: there's still been no arrest. What do the police need?
I don't know. I think if he hasn't gotten arrested yet, you said you guess he might be hiding, but at the same time, Rampage Jackson's not hard to find, and you find him, you're going to try to find the kid. I think there's more of I don't know. It could be more of a political thing. It could be more because his dad's famous. I don't know what it is, because I would have assumed if they showed up to investigate that night, the kid's walking around outside still live streaming. Don't you think that they would just go to him? I've watched a million of these body cam videos where once something happens, you're going to the victim, then you're going to the suspect, right? Wherever they are, you're trying to find them. So if the arrest doesn't happen by now, at the time of this recording, when the episode's out, I don't think they're going to arrest him.
The fix
the civil case is it's so weird, isn't it?